Why do you prefer the Byzantine text over the Alexandrian?
There are many reasons, but the basic one is it is the most widespread text available from the ancient world. The way I illustrate it, and the argument on the other side, is what the NIV calls the two most ancient reliable manuscripts go about 100 years earlier. So they are the most ancient full texts that we have. But all of them are 300 years or so after the autographs, the original writings of the New Testament. And that's a lot of time. So if you picture the autographs as the headwaters of a great river, and you've got this huge river that's 5 miles wide, and you're walking up the left bank, and you're stopped. You're prevented from walking any further. You know, the headwaters are still miles away, and the river is still, miles wide. That tells you that that manuscript tradition was widespread 100 years, 200 years prior, because rivers don't get that wide in 10 feet. The Alexandrian text type is just a sliver of the available manuscripts. It goes 100 years earlier. On the right bank, you can go farther upstream. On the left bank, you can't, but it's a big, fat, wide river at that point. So I believe that the internal consistency in the Textus Receptus is better than the internal consistency of the Alexandrian text type. I believe that it was the text family that the church preserved throughout its history. And the Westminster Confession, to which I subscribe, says that God providentially preserved his text throughout history, which is not the same thing as causing it to disappear for 1,500 years and then have it rediscovered in the 19th century when people were doing text criticism. So that's a short form of why I prefer the one manuscript family to the other.
Could you, I should have added more to this question, but could you give an intro to this question in terms of just relating these to, the Byzantine text is the basis for this series, and a lot of people may not have that all in their mind, and so if we'll do this as like section 2 on New King James.
So you'd like me to do section 1, an intro to the...
Yeah, if you could provide the...
I'm still rolling. You can still do the introduction now, and I'll just...
Okay.
Yeah, if you could just provide the context for this question as it relates to the New King James.
Sure. A lot of Christians have questions about text families and translations and so forth, and there are two main issues. One is translation philosophy, and the other is the manuscripts from which the translation occurs. The basic debate in translation philosophy is formal equivalence, reproducing the original as closely as you can, and dynamic equivalence, which would be getting the gist and speaking in idioms, modern idioms, getting the broad sense of it. So the NIV is a dynamic equivalence. The Message would be an uber dynamic equivalence. The King James would be a formal equivalence. The New American Standard would be a formal equivalence. So that's one set of variables. Then you've got what manuscripts were these Bibles translated from. There are two basic text families, Byzantine and Alexandrian, and there are different names that are given to them. The Codex Sinaiticus and Vaticanus are the minority texts, and they lie underneath virtually all modern translations, all the contemporary translations. NIV, RSV, New American Standard, ESV, in some way they lie underneath those translations. Then the Byzantine text type, or the Reformational printing era name for it was the Textus Receptus, that underlies the King James Bible, and to a smaller extent the New King James. And so you've got two different things going on: translation philosophy and manuscripts from which the translation is done. The New American Standard is formal equivalence, the method I prefer, but I don't like the manuscripts that they're translating from. And someone could nobody's done it yet, but someone could conceivably do a really hip translation, dynamic equivalence from the Textus Receptus, but that's not been done yet.